Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here to the FACEIT League playoffs. 4 different regions fighting for a champion within each one. And of course, we're hoping to see what happens here in the South America region to get started. We already know how that first matchup went. Factor X taking a 3-0 victory over a good old Garfo. And now this game is going to determine basically who both of their opponents are going to be. Winner goes on to face Factor X. Loser going to go down and have to face Garfo immediately in that first round. And between Goodfellas and Pumas, one of these teams has been on top, technically undefeated throughout the whole season. For Pumas, they managed to barely slip in over Zocorp Esports, find themselves in this opportunity that they didn't manage to find themselves in last time. So for them, this is already an improvement for them to be here in the first place.
Yeah, and Hunter, you have to remember, we kind of talked about it in their game last week, which ended up actually being played. But the fact that Garfo ended up beating Pumas in an upset last season to make sure that Pumas didn't get it, and it was Zorcope or Leaders instead who was able to run the gauntlet and get to EWC off of that. Pumas now able to get a victory over Zorcope, which was a main difference here this season for them. And hey, this is a very talented team. Like we've seen it in the past, they can really bring it to anyone. It's a lot of the times they struggle to really have consistency in a lot of these maps here, but playoffs, it's a different game here, really. And you can go back to Goodfellas. Their last season's Elements, they fell apart, to put it lightly. So you'd never know what we're going to be seeing here early on, especially in the first round.
Yeah, no, 100%. There has been craziness from this region for as long as I could possibly remember. And I love the fact that it's unpredictable as to what's going to happen. But this is one of those games, if you're a Goodfellas, you're hoping it's predictable. You're hoping that you can keep up the amazing run that you had this entire season and go and win this whole thing. Yes, it's not quite like it was last season where there was a spot in a massive tournament on the line, but it is still coming together, being able to have redemption from that situation. As that was a loud sound, but redemption from that situation. Oh, Hunter did a funny thing. All right, we are all fixed up. Forget anything happened, ladies and gentlemen. As I was saying, this game should be a momentum setter when it comes to Goodfellas, but for Pumas, we saw last season a team like Zocorp, and even to an extent Factor X, who was able to go into these games, get these big wins against the top 2 teams, who honestly, we felt like that was going to be good Elements Warfist Grand Finals, and at the end of the day, neither of them got there.
Yeah, it was a big surprise. And I mean, Zocorp and Factor X, they had a little bit of a run there in that playoffs last season, knocking out those top 2 teams, which really leads us back into that whole thing of this region is very much chaotic. Yeah, Goodfellas might have gone undefeated technically in the regular season, but you never know. Like I've already mentioned, Goodfellas, or last season they were known as Elements, kind of fell apart once they got to this point. They're trying to make sure they don't do that again this time around. And I mean, Hunter, from what we've seen from this team in the regular season, this is definitely a team that can keep this momentum up and going, because outside of Factor X, it looked like no one could really beat this team.
See, that's what it really felt like at the end of the day, because obviously, when we say that it's technically an undefeated season for Goodfellas, there is that asterisk where Factor X did technically beat them in a 3-1. However, at the time, there was a Cassidy bug. It got used at the time, whether intentional or not. That caused for the decision to be overturned. Ended up being a forfeit instead. So it's a very interesting situation in which, to be fair, that could very well have changed the measure in which teams won. But to be fair, Factor X won their game anyway, so I don't think they'd be complaining too much at this time. But regardless of that being the fact, we're now focused in on this matchup where lineup's still being finalized, as, yeah, it looks like Uriel did get pulled up and is going to be playing as the 5th member. Papo and Crow both sitting on the sidelines for Pumas, but we have seen both of them come in previously. In fact, I think Papo ended up coming out a fair amount in their last series we saw.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, I remember the first ban in our first map, which I believe is going to be Ilios, is Wrecking Ball, which right now, Hunter, we haven't necessarily talked about that as much. Wrecking Ball is really meta at the moment. And I think this is one of the first times that we've been able to say that now for probably, I'm going to say maybe 10 seasons here in Overwatch 2, even at all. Wrecking Ball's always kind of been one of those fringe heroes that's kind of to the meta. You kind of run it just to try to get some touches on point to keep overtimes alive. Maybe you run it if you know the other team really struggles to stop it, but Wrecking Ball is meta at the moment, which is a really, really fun thing to see, because you really are starting to see the teams that know how to communicate really well, but even more importantly, I think know how to play individually really good at Overwatch here, because Wrecking Ball compositions, while there's a lot of coordination you want to do with it, really does lend itself to a lot of solo play, going off on your own, taking flank angles here.
Yeah, 100%. It's something that we're probably going to end up seeing a pretty fair amount here, and it's something that's going to come down to a lot of the scrappiness that we're able to see from Pumas as well, because we have seen them in previous outings. We have seen what they are able to do, and even though they ended up not having the best showing in the world versus against Garfo to finish their season, it also, to be fair, not putting words in anybody's mouth, but it wasn't a game they needed to win. They were in the playoffs no matter what in that situation. And I think maybe maybe they realized that. Maybe it's a situation of, hey, let's go in, let's try some stuff out, let's see what works, let's see what does it. Because honestly, Factor X is probably the perfect litmus test going to that situation of, hey, what can we do against a squad like this? And now that you're going up against Goodfellas, maybe you have something that is going to work against them that necessarily didn't work against Factor X, because we know teams have their own different forms of kryptonite.
Yeah, especially here in the South American region, I think me and you have really seen a lot. While there's a lot of similarities between teams, there's also a lot of differences between them. And that's what makes this region really fun. However, quick thing, Hunter, have you got an invite?
No, I was about to ask the same exact question. And I know I signed up. I have the email open and read.
I did too. So
let me see what I can do really quick and see if I can get a hold of Lamont really quick and see what's going on.
Yeah, but I mean, especially right now with how wide open I think how the meta is here. Yeah, you have those heroes that kind of are at the top, but still it allows you a lot of opportunities here to play some maybe not top, maybe mid-pack heroes and still be able to find a lot of value with it. Hell, one of the best examples right now is Zarya. Zarya is honestly, if not in the meta, always kind of where she is, just outside of it, but you're really starting to see the Russian powerlifter really get into a lot more play here, which is something you truly haven't seen from Zarya in the past, outside of trying to contest maybe a Diva or maybe an Orisa, just trying to slow them down and force the other team to make a swap. So tank pool is really, really wide open at the moment. Hell, Hunter, I know that it's a weird thing to say. Roadhog could be something we see here, especially on a map like Ilios. Yeah, it's always the 12 hogs, one hole kind of idea that you like to imagine seeing here, but you might not. However, Hog is somewhat viable, but you really, really have to be built into playing a Hog.
Yeah, you really have to. It's not something you can just easily pick up and kind of go at it. I mean, it can be that kind of character, but there are certain intricacies that don't really allow for you to just start dominating by swiftly swapping over to a hero. It's not a situation where we had the overpowerness of something like a Malgo where anybody could pick that up, and as long as you know, hey, don't hit this button too early, you'll be perfectly fine. But it does take certain characters, I'll say certain characters, to come in and play things like a Roadhog, like a Wrecking Ball, like even nowadays a Reinhardt, to be honest. We are living in the day and age where playing Reinhardt is a niche more than anything else. So I'm curious to see how it ends up going down in this situation where the ball not being included. I don't think initially changes a whole lot. I think both these teams are perfectly capable of not having to play the ball to get something really meaningful here. But with it being Ilios as well, this opens up to things like the Hazard, like the Diva, like the Winston, and we've been seeing a fair amount of that Diva and Winston pop up more and more as the season's gone on.
Well, yeah, especially with it kind of going over to a little bit more of a dive meta. Yeah, you can still play Brawl, Poke, Rush, any other kind of play style you want to play, but dive has kind of come back into full swing, being that meta that is really the go-to for a lot of teams, not only at this level, levels below it, and levels above it in OWCS as well. So it's not a big shock necessarily to be seeing a lot of teams kind of gravitate back towards it. However, like you said, Ryan becoming a niche pick, but still, if you have a really good Reinhardt player, especially on maps where, hey, Brawl is kind of the more go-to play style, you find a lot more value with it, which is always really fun to see when you see the German Rectangle Man come out here. But, I mean, support lines, Wu Yang getting a lot of play here, a lot of damage coming out as well, and a great amount of healing, which I think a lot of people kind of expected that with this hero when it first came out, but I don't think people necessarily expected that the impact Wu Yang would have, especially this early on. Granted, there's probably one or two nerfs that will come to that hero in the future, but still, you have Kiriko very strong, Lucio still played a lot, Juno kind of here or there, Brig, Ana still very strong, Moira does get opportunities here and there, Zenyatta as well, Iari, almost every support hero you can really make an argument for, even Mercy to a little bit of an extent, you can make that argument for.
Yeah, you can make that argument 100%, and it is going to be very impactful with Wu Yang being now available in the playoffs. and now getting that taken care of. And it's a weird situation. As I'm laughing because I read chat, and quick little context, since we are waiting at this point for something to happen because the time connect has gone away. Ignore the fact that that is technically a forfeit. It's not a forfeit. It's gonna get figured out. It's a situation where I was going to do an Oceania stream, and that was going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it didn't end up happening because Hunter was supposed to wake up at about 5:30 to go prepare for it. Hunter woke up at about 6:30 a.m., and it was beyond that point. There was nothing I could have done about it. Unfortunate situation. Maybe if I am feeling up to it, maybe. Good lord.
So what
yeah.
has Lamont told you?
I haven't got anything back yet, unfortunately. I'm going to try somebody else. Maybe Shinigami could answer me. I don't have a lot of people added through certain things, so I kind of have to go through different avenues. It's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do, but trying to figure it out, trying to get it going, because obviously this isn't a forfeit. Pumas have the people here. I know it says Charlotte didn't connect, but also we didn't connect either. And I know, same as you, we got our verification emails.
That has happened.
Yeah, it has happened multiple times now this season, which, not the best thing. But it's a situation where we have been through this before. We know this isn't the be-all and end-all, but I'm going to go ahead and try to find someone else to get a hold of for a moment. I didn't see you added to any matches. If you'd like to double check, that is interesting. So, I'll tell you what. Really quick, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to quickly cut to a break real fast, just to make sure we got the situation all figured out, make sure everything is set in place as it needs to be. So, when we come back, hopefully, we'll have this game nice and ready for you. Hey guys, welcome back once more. So we're figuring out a couple of situations really quickly about what's happened. So just to catch you up in the situation, I don't know full specifics as to why certain things happened and didn't happen. But unfortunately, we are unable to connect this game, and subsequently, even with support, unfortunately, we're not able to do so now since the game has technically started. So what we're basically going to do is we're basically going to go and raid Burno Stream, who has a live feed, who is watching the game and casting over it. It's going to be in Portuguese, which I think for a majority of you isn't really an issue. But thank you all for stopping by, everyone that did. We'll be back with North America hopefully later on today in about an hour and a half. So hopefully you'll join us for then. So see you then.